I have lived in the US for over 20 years, and over 10 of them have been as a proud citizen, a dual citizen. I'm still also proudly Canadian. I hate conflict. I love healthcare, and I think milk tastes better and it's more efficient if it comes out of a bag. Which is why you need to listen to me when I say that Canada is never going to be the 51st state, you hoser. Yes, that is a real Canadian insult, but it is from the 80s. I don't know if we call each other hosers still, but maybe we do. I think it feels valid, which is why I have some very deeply felt and real choice words for this joke that has gone on long enough and that people are now taking seriously enough that Amazon is selling merch that says Canada is the 51st state. We know by now that President Trump governs in total chaos and distraction. So stop giving this story air. Stop giving it air as soon as I'm done saying my piece. Canada is like an actual real independent country. If it wanted to be ruled by another country, it would go back to Britain. The royals are already on all of the weird plastic money. It just kind of makes sense. Is claiming that he's going to annex Canada the most offensive thing Trump has ever done? Of course not. It's not even really in the top 50. It falls somewhere between wearing ties that are weirdly long and destroying the rose garden, but it is very insulting, and being a good neighbor still means something, at least in Canada. And every Canadian I know is really mad right now. Elbows up. I'm into it. So yeah, okay, Amazon is selling Canada's 51st state merch, but it is also selling elbows up merch, and that feels pretty good too. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is the senator of the actual last state to be added, Hawaii. Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz, Chief Deputy Whip of the Senate. Some days it's hard to feel any hope in government, but today was not one of those days. I have such deep admiration and gratitude for Senator Schatz. So take a listen and make good choices.
Nice to meet you all. Samantha, I'm a huge fan.
Hi. Oh my goodness, I'm a huge fan right back at you. Senator Schatz, thank you so much for joining us. You're so busy. You're right in the middle of work chaos. Can you just tell us what is it actually like to show up for work every day amidst Doge and Donald Trump and all these cuts? Like, what does your day look like? Tell me.
You know, it's an important question, because the way to understand this place, as a human, is is still a workplace. It is still,
right.
And these are your colleagues. Some of the people who are awful are pleasant, and some of the people who vote right and are in solidarity with us are unpleasant. And so the job, it's not the main job, but one of the main skills you have to develop in the Senate is compartmentalization, because in order to enact important legislation, you have to work with people who you find odious. If you're not good at that, and most people are not, frankly, good at that, then it's not the right job for you. But on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of kind of like out-of-body experience, like trying to maintain some sense of professionalism and propriety while understanding exactly how rotten the decisions are that are being made.
And many of the decisions are rotten. So this is like the most toxic Thanksgiving table that we could possibly imagine. And you have to negotiate with people whose opinions you find to be, as you say, odious. Where did you learn those skills? How do you know how to do? Is that just in you?
I think it's in me. I think I had a lot of practice at the dinner table on Sunday nights with, I have 3 brothers, no sisters. And we just sort of argued for an hour and a half over dinner. And so that was good practice. And it was also good practice in terms of like not taking it all so personally. So I think it's one thing to be chill about what's happening, and I am not chill.
No.
But you also have, I think about Zelensky a lot because I've met him several times. And he is a person who is capable of being calm and
Right.
strategic and sort of cold and calculating as necessary. But that is different from him, underestimating the threat.
Right.
He understands exactly what the threat is, and therefore he keeps his head on straight. And
Right.
so I try to, I'm not trying to emulate Zelensky, but I try to, mimic that sort of attitudinal approach, which is to say, we are in a very alarming time. Trump's tariffs, he is going through with it. He really believes in all of this.
Hmm.
Billions of dollars of wealth are being destroyed. Layoffs are happening across the country. So we are in dire, dire times. But people need us to be strategic and strong,
Right.
not just sort of hair on fire at all times.
What kinds of side door meetings are you having? What kinds of side conversations are you having right now? Like, do you let yourself go there? Do you let yourself get into a doom spiral, or can you not do that because
Not
of the role you play?
not during the day. That's sort of my
Okay.
rule, right? Like when it's go time, it's go time. I got to function.
Yeah.
I got to do things. I got to deliver speeches. I got to, vote right. I got to study the issues. But I'm just a person like everybody else, scrolling social media
Sure.
and then thinking, oh my God, my neck is sore, my body is aching, and I have anxiety. I got to throw this phone in the trash can.
How are you strategizing? How are you finding moments to go, okay, well, what if we do this? Like, is it like a big brainstorm session where you're just like putting post-it notes up on a whiteboard?
Look, I think a couple of things. First, one of the things that Cory Booker demonstrated in three
Yeah.
dimensions to all of us is that we ought not be so precious and develop a strategy that is comprehensive and likely to work and vetted by everybody and not cringe and dialed up exactly to the temperature that some pundit or some activist or some other politician wants. Like what people want to see is personal courage,
Hmm.
moral clarity,
Hmm.
exertion, and in this case, it was physical and emotional exertion, but that doesn't have to be that form or fashion. But I think what people want to see is, and this is metaphorical, not real, but they want us to understand we're in a fight, and you pick up whatever rock is available to you and whip it at the other side, again, metaphorically.
Right.
And so our litigation strategy is working.
Hmm.
That is not to say that there aren't real perils there, but so far we've been not just prevailing in court, but the administration has been, with the exception of the Trendagua case, has been mostly complying with federal court orders. And that, I think, is considered a red line for several Republicans, both in the Congress and outside of the Congress. So our litigation strategy is not perfect, but it has been successful. Then there's the kind of traditional strategy of an opposition party, which we don't want to abandon. We just need to know it's not enough, which is we need to make what is happening maximally unpopular so that the voters can have their say in the midterms. But I do think that we don't want to just ride that everyone's pissed off at Trump wave and allow it to sort of paper over the structural problems in the Democratic Party. People
Right.
agree with us, but they're kind of pissed off at us at the kind of cultural level, at the leadership level, at the generational level. So
Right.
that's a longer lead time item. And then I think we have to watch and fight against those actions that are specifically designed to seize institutions and organs of power in ways that are a little bit more durable and a little bit more resistant to, an electoral consequence. And
Right.
that's the part that is different than any other presidency in many, many generations.
Right. There's just so much happening all at the same time. It is a little akin to a conversation I was having with some of the leadership of Planned Parenthood recently, where they were like, okay, there's structural problems like within any organization that we're trying to repair, but we're flying the plane while we're fixing the plane. There is a lot going on all at once. And so they're also a level of grace is sort of required. Not everything can be fixed like in the exact moment that it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, and I think there's a sort of a sickness in the Democratic coalition.
Hmm.
It's a very specific thing that happens, which is when you're in an advocacy organization and someone does something you like, or someone does something that you don't like. Now the deal is like some young, talented person who has social media talents, puts up a thank these senators for doing X or lobby these senators for doing Y. And that mechanism for influencing Congress, like it does work. The problem is that our tent keeps shrinking, and that we keep sorting pure and impure, right? And
Right.
people who are real fighters and people who are not real fighters. And politics is addition, not subtraction. And so, to your point about grace, I understand it's sort of like grace about not having every strategy worked out,
Hmm.
grace about maybe making a tactical error here or there, or misspeaking, or whatever it is. But there's also a larger grace, which is we want people with weird ideas in our coalition,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
When the Obama campaign in Hawaii took off, which I grant you was not a particularly challenging enterprise, um, but it was a really interesting thing. I was leading the campaign, and the people who showed up at that caucus, right, at Roosevelt High School and Kawananakoa Middle School, and voted on Post-it notes in the presidential primary, and the membership of the Democratic Party went from 17,000 to 70,000 overnight. There were a lot of people with like, let's just be kind, heterodox ideas.
Right.
And if you had run them down like, hey, here's the Democratic orthodoxy, how much of this do you agree with? You might have gotten to like 70%, because these were people who were part of a movement, right? And a movement is faith in strangers. And it's an interpersonal and community-based faith, not a checklist. And we've gotten too checklisty, and we are always sorting ourselves between pure and impure. And we just got to get out of that habit.
Yes, I'm 55 years old. The older I'm a part of an older generation now of voters and we all kind of understand that sometimes you're just holding your nose and voting. Like you're never voting for the most pure person who like addresses all of your needs. It's just like the better version. It's just like who you like better in a wide array of possibilities or a very narrow array of possibilities. And I think like are you sensing all around you, people who are regretting their votes for Donald Trump? Like, I feel that those people are not quite loud enough.
Yes, I do. But I think there's a couple of things. First, I think anybody who scolds people for voting
Hmm.
for Trump is out of their damned mind.
Right.
Politics is addition, not subtraction. People vote for your party for their reasons, not yours.
Hmm.
And we are too interested in vindicating our view
Right.
and not interested enough in winning. And so I've seen some people online like, hey, this guy said this last year and he can, shut the fuck up forever. And I'm like, hey, man, this guy has a
Right.
big platform and now he hates Trump. That's great. Welcome. Right.
Right. Like
No.
it's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't think that I have accord with Joe Rogan on too many things, but I'm very happy that he is speaking out about the deportation of that very innocent person who was here legally, who's now
And
in an El Salvadorian prison. Like I'm
I
like,
like, I,
please talk more. Say it louder.
see, I always thought Andrew Schultz was funny, and I had no idea that there was any political valence to Andrew Schultz. And like, he's come to Hawaii, and to his credit, he sort of spent a fair amount of time. And a lot of our comedians do humor about the different sort of our pluralistic society,
Hmm.
but that's a dangerous thing to do, like fly in from the continent and do a bunch of like ethnic type jokes.
Right.
But he did great. Like he was respectful, but not scared. And I always thought, well, that's a good comedian. He's a talented dude. And then he just sort of decided to be with Rogan and Theo Vaughn and all those guys. And I just saw a clip from him, which could have been like me talking, where it was like, basically, they're all ripping you off
Hmm.
and they're trying to distract you by getting you to pick on trans people. And I'm
Right.
like, thank you.
Well, okay.
But we just need for everybody to feel welcome in this coalition.
Right.
And one of the things that I've seen that is different than Trump 1.0 in terms of the resistance is the resistance was very much a progressive intersectional left-wing movement. And by the way, like politically, I'm perfectly comfortable in that movement.
Hmm.
But this one seems a little different. And I think it's the veterans being laid off. It's the Social Security being threatened. It's the Medicaid cuts, and it's the
Yeah.
tariffs, and it's the unlawfulness where people are sort of saying, look, I have whatever view I have about social issues or the size and the scope of the government, but this man is out of his mind. I know it seems obvious, but like just having politicians and pundits and other activists using the words welcome, like you are welcome, right? When someone
Right.
comes into your house, it is not assumed that someone is welcome. You have to say, hey, welcome, come on in, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so
Oh, right.
verbalizing that attitude, I think, is an important first step.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster, and it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. When I was looking to hire someone, it was really slow and actually quite overwhelming. I wish I had used Indeed. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. How fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Join the 3.5 million employers worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Sam. Just go to Indeed.com/Sam right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Sam. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. I mean, it's chilling to see video footage of like college students getting plucked off the street. And I welcome anybody who wants to talk about that out loud. I'm like, please, can we talk about that?
It's real. That one is really terrifying and impossible to defend.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I say to Republicans who are sort of good conscience but not necessarily courageous yet is if you think Trump should have total authority over the budget, regardless of what you guys enacted as a matter of law, wait till President Booker comes in and does whatever the hell he wants with the defense budget or the HHS budget or whatever, because the door does swing both ways in politics.
It always swings both ways in politics. And so how do you get people, because you're a great communicator, you understand social media, and you're like, you and Chris Murphy, you have a whole thing going. Like, it's wonderful to see, but how are you using your skills, I guess, to make people courageous in this moment? Because people are really scared.
I think I am a better organizer than I am a communicator. I think I'm a B+ communicator.
Okay, well, a B+ is very good. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I was a solid B+ all the way through high school and college.
Perfectly fine.
But I think if I have a talent in the political realm, it's that I like to organize other politicians.
Oh.
And so, for instance, I put a blanket hold on State Department nominees pretty early in Trump's tenure because of the illegal dismantling of U.S. aid. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to kind of walk members through how to execute blanket holds in their committees of jurisdiction. Okay. It's a very kind of technical thing, but like, I don't want to be remembered as a person who was popular on Instagram.
Right.
I want to be remembered as someone who successfully was part of a team that allowed the bones of democracy to remain standing when a autocrat tried to seize the reins of American-style government. And those are different things. It's not that I want to be unpopular on Instagram. It's not that I don't feel that there's a role for me on the communication side. It's just that there are 47 of us, and we're much stronger when we're acting in unison or at least in a coordinated fashion. Okay. Someone talks about organizing Democratic senators, not as herding cats, but moving an amoeba across the bridge.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about Ukraine for a second? Because there have to be just Republican colleagues of yours who are aghast at Trump and Musk and their handling of Ukraine and his fights with Canada and the closure of USAID. I mean, why is Lindsey Graham doing a complete 180 on Ukraine? What is going on?
On the Ukraine side, I think there continues to be bipartisan support for both funding Ukraine's defense and also for, every war ends with a political settlement.
Hmm.
And so it's not completely out of line to say that we should have a conversation about how this thing is going to end.
Right.
That was bound to happen. But the terms that Putin wants are really, it's not a ceasefire, it's a complete capitulation. I do not think the support is there in Congress for allowing Putin to essentially vanquish and control all of Ukraine. So on that one, I think there's bipartisan support. On the other stuff, I feel like they are dancing around trying to pretend that he's not serious about what he's talking about. He's going through with it. It is actually different than the first term. He's
Right.
going through with it. It's not like mean tweets, some corruption, and mostly like normie political stuff, maybe some bad policy outcomes, but he's not very good at legislating. And plus, which the Democrats were in charge of the Congress. So it was hard for him to enact anything. He's going through with all of it. He's
Yeah.
doing the tariffs. Like today, there's going to be a vote to move forward with Medicaid cuts. So when they say they want to do, for instance, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, when they say, for instance, that they want to seize Greenland, I just assume that they're very serious about this. And this is not a throwaway comment to designed to distract. I think he has very crazy ideas and has now surrounded himself with people who sound plausible in the implementation of it, right? Like
Right.
the tariff thing was bananas because it does appear that they used some sort of AI to reverse engineer like a jackass equation to figure out how
What?
much to assess.
Are you serious? I have not read that yet.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
So like people, because the numbers came out in a spreadsheet. It's not very difficult for smart math people to reverse engineer how they came up with it, and it's like real dumb stuff, right?
Oh
And
my
so,
God. So
but
the same people who brought us like hot dog fingers in images are creating the
yeah,
template
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
global trade.
Well, and the same people who like control F in a PDF for the word gender
Yeah.
and killed all grants, including lots of NIH studies about maternal mortality,
Yep.
because it had the word gender, right? So and by the way, they searched for the word bias. And the problem with the word bias is it is not used in the kind of social justice context in science.
Hmm.
They are looking for scientific bias, for confounding variables, for reasons to believe that their study is invalid. But anytime they found the word bias, they canceled the grant. Like these people are
Yes.
children.
I did hear recently, somebody told me just the other day that they searched the word opportunity and they canceled everything that had the word opportunity in it because they inferred that it was DEI, that you would never use the word opportunity in any other context.
Yeah. And mind
Yeah.
you, like I got a little lit up on Twitter a while ago because I said on DEI in particular, like with Cory Booker, he and I have done a lot to diversify Senate staff and give lots of
Yeah.
people more opportunities. And that was we had a programmatic approach over the last decade to make sure that we took statistics about diversity in our staffers. Like, so I've been working on
Yeah.
this for a while. However, if what people mean by DEI is like some consultant with a PowerPoint who comes in to run exercises and scold everybody, that is not actually advancing the cause of diversity. So I would be willing to concede the narrow question of DEI as a sort of programmatic corporate consulting thing.
Hmm.
But they're not going after DEI. They're going after diversity. They're
Yes.
going after civil rights and human rights. And they have now decided anybody who is black is DEI, anybody who is female is DEI,
Mhm.
as you know, Jackie Robinson is DEI, the 442nd and the
Yes.
100th Battalion, the all-Japanese infantry in which my predecessor, Danny Noy, fought, lost his arm fighting the fascists, was DEI. And so it's not just that these people have fascist instincts, it's also that they're very shitty at this.
Very shitty at this. I definitely agree with you. I think that people are opposed to DEI because they think they just don't want to do any more seminars at work. And they thought that those would just be canceled and that would be it. But that is so not it.
Yeah.
That is not the whole ball of wax. Do you, why aren't we still talking about the chaos around that Signal chat every single day? I feel like we talked about Obama's tan suit every day for 4 years.
So it's a really good point, and I actually agree. And so does Mark Warner, and so do a number of others who have been, passionate about national security and the confidentiality and the classification systems. So we are going to keep talking about it. It's a little hard because yesterday was the tariff day, and so it's sort of
Liberation Day. Like we just got to give it its proper name.
No, I considered calling it that, but I was okay. Anyway, but Signalgate, I agree, and I think we actually had a really constructive conversation in the caucus about this. And I will never betray what other people say in the caucus, but I can tell you what I said, which is that we can't let any pollsters show up and talk us out of twisting this knife around Signalgate, because it's not just a question of how something polls. It's a question of how resonant it is. And this goes to a couple of really key things. It goes to competency, but it also goes to one of the things that Trump did brilliantly in the electoral context is he went into the lion's den electorally and scooped up not a lot, 4, 5, sometimes 2% from a constituency that he was losing by 90%. Now he loses by 85%. And there's your election. And we tend to assume that whoever's with us is going to stick with us, and whoever's not with us is going to not stick with us, and coalitions can never be scrambled. The thing we learned from this last Trump election in particular is coalitions are really malleable. Maybe it's polarization, maybe it's the internet, maybe I don't know what it is, but I don't think these people are forever going to be for Donald Trump. And specifically because of what they're doing to veterans, because they're what they're doing on tariffs, because they're what they're doing on the rule of law, there's an opportunity for us to go and lose rural neighborhoods, not by 65-35, but by 58-42. That's what we should do. So the reason Signalgate is an enormous opportunity, I don't give a shit how it polls, is that the kind of people who find Signalgate offensive are the people who might not normally gravitate towards Democrats. And so we've got to find those opportunities to win folks back and to demonstrate that we're not waking up every morning thinking about whatever a college professor has advised us is, going to be the future. It's not that we actually do that, but that is definitely in the minds of tens of millions of Americans, which is that here prices are going up and all Democrats care about is XYZ social issue. It's not actually true.
No.
But in order for it to fall flat, they need to hear our voices repeating ourselves in this space. And they also need to see a kind of body language that demonstrates a comfort with national security issues, with protecting veterans, with the price of things, and all of that, and not just go to our happy place. My happy place, not happy place, but my area of focus is, climate and the social safety net. And all of those things are super important. And I'll never stop fighting for them and about them. But I also just think the point of elections is to get to 50% plus one so you can enact things. And our coalition has to get extremely practical over the next 2 years.
Extremely practical and lean on people who can speak authentically on the issues, extemporaneously on the issues, actually, because I mean, it's actually a little bit mind-blowing to me, but authentic speech and fiery speech is actually what people are gravitate to it. When things seem practiced, when things seem scripted in a way, people are rejecting that. I don't understand. Anyway, I don't know why, but that's the way it is right now.
I think it's first of all, I do think it's the internet and people are accustomed to kind of getting direct access to their communicators, whether they're leaders or Instagram personalities or whatever. But there's a mechanical thing we have to fix in democratic politics, which is it was not unreasonable 15 years ago for us to go to a very respected pollster, take a statistically valid sample and say, here are the 5 issues, which one is the most popular? Okay. And then now that we found the most popular, how do we say it in the maximally popular way? Right. The
Yeah.
problem is that the data that comes back ends up being a lowest common denominator. The way you can get to something polling at 75% is not that it's the most interesting way to say it, but that it's the least interesting way to say it. It's the
Right.
least offensive
Right.
way to say it. The problem with that is, A, it doesn't sound like a person anymore.
Hmm.
And B, if the point is for something to move around the internet, the least offensive way to say something is the least viral. And so
Right.
if I go like, working families deserve a chance, and Donald Trump's and MAGA Republican, I'm trying to give you poll tested crap.
Sure, sure.
MAGA Republicans, something, are raising the prices of bananas, and we will always fight for blah, blah, blah. And it just sounds like I've never heard a single human in my actual life talk like that. We should just say he's fucking up the economy, right? And he's trying
Yeah.
to steal Medicaid from you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that is resonant to my ears.
Yeah.
That's what makes sense in our current way of being. How do you rein in the distractions? Because there are distractions. I mean, we're talking about like a third term of a Trump presidency, which I know is not real. He definitely dreams these things and wakes up and goes, let's make it happen. I could run for a third term, no problem. But is it something we need to think about and focus on now? Like, how do you cut through and know exactly what you should be drilling down on?
It's if I had like a technique, I would share it with you. I guess what I would say is that the first question is, does it feel like an intentional distraction? And if it even feels like it, then I put it in that category.
Okay.
And that's an instinctual thing. The third term one did sound to me like he was having a bad week and wanted to talk about that. And then
Okay.
you get a bunch of, like, as they call them, anti-Trumpers to say, here are these Democrats, the sky is falling again. So that one felt like a trap.
Oh, okay.
Part of the way I structure this is what enables us to be successful in court, what enables us to be successful on the street with a pluralistic, people-powered movement,
Hmm.
what enables us to succeed in the legislative context. Now, we don't have very many tools, but we have some, right? And what enables us to succeed in the next election. And so if I can find a pathway, whatever's happening, to sort of help us on those four lanes, then I do it.
Right.
So part of what I do is not so much distraction or not, but am I capable to do something about this?
Okay.
Because one of the things I always say on social is, if I am tweeting about it, if I am posting about it, I am working on it. I
Okay.
never do a social media post instead of my job.
Ah,
I do it in addition to it. And so
okay.
if I can't credibly say, hey, I'm working on this, then I'm not going to go like, can you believe it? Because I just think like I have an election certificate. This is a cool job. This is an important job. And I can't just be like another person going like, I can't believe he did that thing, or I can't believe he said
Right.
that thing. My job is to actually fight it. Now, if I'm in the middle of fighting it, I'm perfectly happy to go on social and explain why something is terrible or what I'm doing about it.
Right.
But I just think you kind of you have to be in communication with constituents, but that's not a substitute for the jobby job.
Oh, I love that you have delineated our two jobs so perfectly, because you have your job and my job is to go, I can't believe this is happening.
Well, but you do it more cleverly than that.
Okay, $21 million, $25 million spent by Elon Musk on a Wisconsin court seat, and he lost. Is he going to learn? Does he learn lessons? What is the fallout if you're using your spidey senses? What do you think?
I can't predict what Elon Musk will do. I
Mhm.
do think, his companies are struggling, and that's got to matter to
Right.
him at some level. He can obviously absorb a financial hit, and he could probably, lose wealth for the foreseeable future and still be the wealthiest man on the planet. So I don't want to assume that he's going to sort of slither away. I
Mhm.
will say that he is dragging Trump's popularity down,
Right.
that he is deeply unpopular. And, the way to understand his popularity is not like the normal, do you have a favorable opinion or an unfavorable opinion? Because that's actually too generous. The question at hand is, like, I have a favorable opinion of Nikola Jokic, the center for the Denver Nuggets. Do I think he should be in the government running the Department of Government Efficiency? I do not. So there are still people, not that many, he's now polling very poorly, who think Elon Musk is cool. I like cars and rockets.
Right.
And even in that subset, they're going like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I want him like in charge of anything governmental, because what the hell does he know? And also, no corporate leader should be in the middle of deciding what stays and what goes.
Right.
And so I think this thing is deeply damaging. The other thing is, prior to today, and with the notable exceptions of people who have like already experienced either layoffs or like reductions in service, it's still the case that most people are responding to what they are seeing on a screen rather than what they are experiencing for themselves.
Right.
And so I believe that what they are doing is going to make them way more unpopular, because this is all sort of pre-pocketbook impact. This is all pre-societal impact. And now stuff is getting very, very real. And it's going to be very difficult to sort of pick on a small minority of people or get upset about somebody telling you which words to use when you've lost your job or everything is 30% more expensive. And so I think it's going to get worse for them. Caveat, right, is that doesn't mean that's the only part of our strategy, right? I understand polling numbers will not save us, and even a successful midterm will not save us. We need to do better as Democrats of being a united opposition party. Democrats in the House and the Senate need to, whenever possible, vote the same, talk about things the same, and just sort of put on a united front. And I think we need to do a better job of communicating with the grassroots, which is really a growing thing. On April 5th, there's going to be a big, I think more than 1,000 sort of protests across the country. And we need to feed that movement. But we also need to tell them what we're doing in ways that are not just designed to, for instance, be popular on Instagram, right?
Right.
Because like it's the old Steve Jobs thing. People don't know what they want until they see it. And so the problem we've had is that because we were sorting ourselves, people were not seeing much. So they started to make demands that weren't really founded in a strategy. But fair enough, we weren't doing anything. And so they were like, well, okay, if it's not this, what is it? And I think what Cory has shown, and frankly, I showed, a month and a half ago with the blanket holds, is people don't know. If it looks like you're fighting, if it looks like it's having an impact, they're for it, right?
Right.
And, but absent that, someone's going to cook up a demand, and then we're going to be in a back and forth with our own grassroots, where it's like, well, here's why this is not the wisest course of action. And I just never want to be there again. Not because I'm worried about my own politics, but like I said, the biggest bulwark against authoritarianism across the planet is a people-powered pluralistic movement. And so we have a role to play as elected officials to not kill fight and communicate well and to be united and to not do business as usual. And citizens need to rise up. Now, Cory had a lot of credibility saying, you are not powerless. I need you, because he put his body on the line. I mean, that dude, he's my dearest friend in the Senate, and he's just a very good person.
He's the best. He's so good.
He's so good. And I got to say, I mean, I cried like a couple of times towards the end. I was just so impressed and so proud.
It was impressive.
But I've seen filibusters. Filibusters get terrible on the substantive level towards the end.
Yeah.
And you're a performer. Like, I think about, the way comedians talk is like, I've got a good 40 minutes or I've got 20 minutes.
And then you're like, done. Then you got to go get a Diet Coke.
And I was saying, like, what do I have in me? Like, I think I got 3 hours, 4 hours if you pushed. I do not have a good 25 hours. And his last minute was as good as his first. And
it's great.
That was like, the guy's superhuman.
It is so what people need. It's what people want to see. They want to see people being in the fight. And so I guess this is going to be my last question, because I know you got to go vote. And like, what is the best thing that citizens can be doing now? We know that the switchboards are all getting flooded. We know that. What are the best things for people to individually be doing?
I would flood Republican offices with a simple message. And I'm not any longer an organizer in that way. But but I would flood them with a simple message: don't cut Medicaid. Um, that's number one in terms of the phone calls.
Yeah.
I think social media counts. So I used to be one of those people who are like, posting something on Facebook doesn't count. You got to knock on doors. Life has changed. Posting absolutely counts.
Mm-hmm.
I also think just attitudinally for anyone who's listening, who's got a relative or a friend or a coworker who's like kind of like went to the other side, like just be welcoming. I think that's such an important aspect of this. I'm in a long-term dialogue with a couple of my friends who won't admit it, but I do think they voted for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to just move them over. They live in Hawaii, so it's not that big of a difference maker, but it's an experiment for me to see, what arguments work and what attitudinal approach works. And then the final thing that I think is maybe the most important is show up in 3 dimensions, right?
Mm.
If a movement is faith in strangers, it is very difficult to develop faith in strangers without being eyeball to eyeball and shoulder to shoulder, like physically in real life. And the beauty of all of that is because that's now an unusual thing,
Right.
it's got even more potency politically. And it also lends itself to all the rest of it, social media, phone calls, blah, blah, blah. But we've got to be the ones showing up in 3 dimensions. Like
Right.
electorally, we got away with the Biden campaign the first time that was, COVID oriented and safety oriented and whatever.
Right.
And then we just got to show up physically, because I do think, like, I believe this stuff about Hawaii politics. Like, yard signs are a big deal in Hawaii. And we have this thing, we call it sign waving, where you stand with a sign with your own name on it.
Yeah.
Just go like this at passing cars. You just wave at passing cars.
Really?
And oh yeah, when I first ran for the state house exactly 26 years ago, I would stand on the corner for about 5 hours a day in rush hour traffic and just wave. And here's why it mattered. First, you were humbling yourself before the voters, because nobody mistook
Right.
that for like high-minded stuff. It was just like, I'm willing to do a hard thing for
Mhm.
you. The other thing that it comes back, goes all the way back to the plantation days. The people standing next to you were an indicator of who your coalition was. And back in the
Oh.
plantation days, it was like, if you had Filipino and Japanese and Puerto Rican and Native Hawaiian people standing with you, then that indicated what the coalition was. And if they were willing to,
Oh.
because it's such a small town, it's 1.55 million people, but it
Right.
still operates like a small town. And so if you saw your cousin or someone who looked like someone you knew, that was enough, right? And I still think that, especially now that everyone's spending too many hours a day on their screens, showing up in 3 dimensions and seeing people you actually know or people you kind of
Right.
feel like you could know is a huge difference maker. And also, it's harder than just tweeting and then moving on to your next thing.
It
Like,
is harder.
showing up
It's a
in-
commitment.
You got to park, you got to take the bus, like it's hot or it's cold, or
Got to get a
let somebody-
jacket.
you got to get a jacket, you
Yep.
got to listen to someone else, like that all works. So that's my advice to everybody: show up in person, establish a movement as faith in strangers.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got so much going on, and get out there and do your votes and
All right.
do your work. You're incredible. That was Senator Brian Schatz, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. I was so amazed at what he told me about the Hawaiian custom of sign waving on the side of the road. I had to see what its history was, and it's true. Everybody does it. It originated back in 1968 when a high school teacher was running for city council and didn't have any money, so he and his students held up signs for his campaign on the side of the road, and he won. They are doing it right. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee, and see you next week for some more Choice Words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Tzvia Baron Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.